Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Tom Spark. Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about 5 popular VPNs that are overhyped. Now guys, in this video is just my opinion based on my research and reviews that I've done. I'm not intending to slander or defame any of these VPN providers, and if you want to use them, feel free. No VPN really out there except for like free ones, and I guess ones that aren't updated anymore are terrible. But in my opinion, these are 5 popular VPNs I still see used today that I wouldn't use myself. And in this video, I'm going to discuss why. But if you guys are interested in my top ranked VPN, I'll be putting it in the description down below, and you can get 3 free months on it as well as 2 of my favorite other products. So make sure to check the description down below if you're interested in my favorite and top rated privacy products. Alright guys, so first up, let's go ahead and discuss my number 1 VPN that people probably use a lot. I personally think it's not really that good, and I think it's overhyped. It's going to be probably ExpressVPN. Now ExpressVPN, I actually used to like this VPN more back in the day. I found that it was better, but over the years it's kind of slacked in certain departments. It doesn't have WireGuard, for example. It makes its own protocol called Lightway, and eventually they did open source it, but it was closed source for a long time. WireGuard was open source. I never have been able to get the same kind of speeds I get with WireGuard as I do with Lightway. Lightway just is slower for some reason. Outside of that though, Express also used to be a little bit more trusted. It was owned by a different company, and now it's purchased by a separate company, and that company has been involved in a couple different scandals or kind of negative PR hits. Suffice to say, ExpressVPN's reputation has been quite damaged over the years, and that's kind of probably why you don't see it talked about quite as often. They were really blitzing the YouTube scene kind of like NordVPN, but in my opinion it wasn't quite as effective, and it really didn't kind of make it as big as it could have been. That said, I find the application isn't really updated that often. There really hasn't been any new special things with ExpressVPN. They haven't really expanded its product offering as something as successful as something like NordVPN, for example. And at the end of the day, it's still very expensive, around $100 a year. They've never really changed the pricing, which is kind of admirable. But if you get that 12-month plan and you get it for 3 years, that's gonna be $300. Something else out there like Nord is going to be way cheaper and just a better deal overall, and have more packaged incentives. Let me just show you guys here what that would look like. So like I said, $100 a year for ExpressVPN. You get stream compatibility and some of those things, but you don't get any extras. No integrated antivirus or anything like that. None of the kind of extra cool features you get with VPNs nowadays. But let's go ahead and check a look at Nord and see what you could get for the same price. So let's see, Nord you could get 2 years. So ExpressVPN's thing would be around $200. So Nord you could get the ultimate package and still save $40 over Express. That gives you 20 gigabytes of travel data. You get kind of an integrated antivirus, kind of light into the VPN, tracker and ad blocker, cross-platform password manager, data breach scanner, cloud storage, and identity theft protection. If you don't need any of that, you could get 2 years for the price of 1 year of Express. So that just kind of goes to show you how expensive Express is, and I just don't think it's really that worth it. But that's just my opinion. Maybe things would have been a little bit different if they hadn't sold the company, if they'd been innovating a little bit more, in my opinion. But that's just my thoughts on Express. Next up, we could talk about Windscribe. Now, Windscribe is a product I used to like quite a bit back in the day. However, over time, my opinion slowly shifted on it. I've had my own share of personal issues with this one, with management and even the community. I find very toxic in their Discord and stuff like that. There was a couple instances where people were coming to my server and harassing people. I had to contact the mod team and tell them to cut it out. Never really got resolved, but eventually they kind of got bored of harassing my server, I think. If you go on their server and look up Tom Spark, you could see what I mean. There's probably 6 or 7 years of people being obsessed with me in there. It's kind of creepy, to be honest. But outside of those personal issues, it's a decent VPN, but I do think it is a little bit overhyped for what it is. One reason I think that is because there is the team kind of makes it seem like it's so superior to any other VPN. Any other VPN just sucks completely compared to it. But if you look at examples from people, hackers and educated people actually looking at the VPN itself, you'll see that the code isn't as good as they make it out to be. This guy wrote a very good article discussing why Windscribe's code is actually very amateur, and he actually posted a very bad vulnerability on Twitter. And there was actually a little fight that he had with the CEO. CEO was being very unprofessional, probably which led to that issue on Twitter itself. So this is only like one example. There's been a couple other issues with Windscribe security, server seizures, the Chrome extension was leaking IPs, a couple different other things. In totality, you know, is any VPN perfect? Because other VPNs had these issues, sure. But Windscribe's management, I think, just deals with things very negatively, makes the VPN kind of look bad, in my opinion. You know, I just think if you're looking for a VPN like Windscribe, I just think it's not all it's cracked up to be. At the end of the day, it's not the worst VPN in the world, and no VPN is perfect, like I said. But I think this one is definitely overhyped for what it is, and this guy kind of proved that. Next up, we could talk about a VPN called iVPN. Now, this VPN hasn't really necessarily had any security issues or anything like that. It hasn't really changed hands or anything like that. But I do think this one is a little bit overhyped for what it is, and I don't know if I would recommend using it, and I don't really use it myself. Why is that? Well, kind of like ExpressVPN is the pricing model. iVPN is a VPN that really kind of focuses core on privacy. But for that price, you don't get any extra features. You don't get streaming compatibility, which means you can't unblock various regions. You don't get port forwarding with this one since they removed that as well. So it's not really necessarily good for streaming. It's not perfect for torrenting. And what do you get for that? Well, it's probably the most expensive VPN out there, aside from maybe something like Express. As you can see here, it's around $100 a year, $160 for 2 years, and $220 for 3 years. So at least it's cheaper than Express, but only because you could buy it long term. They do have the standard plan, but that limits you to only 2 devices, and they upsell features like multi-hop. So I'm not a huge fan of them having like, I guess it gives more flexibility, but at the same time, I would honestly rather the iVPN standard plan just include everything like this for this price. If they included the iVPN standard with 7 devices and multi-pop, this would be a pretty good deal. But this alone as their standard plan is just too expensive and not really worth what you're paying for it as a service overall. Like I said, no streaming compatibility, no port forwarding. It's really just kind of for privacy and anonymity. And a lot of VPNs can achieve that, but do other things too. So that's just my thoughts on why this one is a little overhyped. Next up, we could talk about a VPN called IPVanish, and this one used to be way bigger back in the day. However, just like ExpressVPN, this is a company that's also changed hands a couple times. The one thing I do like about IPVanish is it seems like the development is fairly active, at least in terms of updating the applications and stuff like that, and they added an Apple TV application, which kind of surprised me. I actually kind of thought this one was a little bit more out of date than it is, not updated very often, and that's probably because if you look at the application, it looks the same as it has for around 10 years or so. It's definitely not the most innovative VPN or anything like that. I think my reason for not really recommending this one too often is just across the board, it kind of does suffer in kind of weird areas. If we specifically look at the VPN tier list itself, for example, we could kind of see why it's rated low despite seeming good at first glance. Overall, I think the application on PC is kind of weak. As you can see here, it doesn't have split tunneling, a lot of ad blocking features, DNS controls, port forwarding, a lot of extras kind of missing from it. Speeds are good from it. Privacy audit, not too good though. Like I said, the company's been sold a couple times. They have a couple security or kind of questionable issues in the past. If we look at this customer support, we didn't see live chat. Streaming overall just doesn't perform as well as it used to. And I kind of think that the application, at least on PC last time I reviewed it, was just kind of feeling like it needed a little bit more of a modern refresh, like we've seen with other VPNs, whether it be NordVPN or something like Surfshark. Just while it seems to be updated, at least in terms of some ways, I think it also could use a refresh, and it just seems like it's kind of been stagnant. Every once in a while I'll see someone talking about it though, and I'm like, oh yeah, people still use that one? Huh. Outside of that though, guys, one last VPN we could talk about is a VPN called AirVPN. Now, you might not have even heard of this one, but there's this subreddit called the VPN Torrents that for some reason decided that every other VPN besides this one sucks. They really only like VPNs that support port forwarding. This is one of the VPNs that does. However, that said, the pricing is pretty good. The company isn't horrible. But outside of that, I think this one is very overrated. And why is that? Well, the application is pretty bad. It looks like it was designed in Windows XP 20 years ago and never updated since. I have issues with this one almost every time I install it, some bug going on or something like that. Other people have had similar issues. There's been some controversy with some server seizures that have gone on that have kind of made people a little bit more leery of it. But people on that specific torrent subreddit really like to shield this one. But I haven't really had very good speeds with this one or good experiences. Back in the day, way back in the day, maybe 8 years ago, this was one of my top VPNs. But since then, it really hasn't aged well. So that's definitely my thoughts on AirVPN. I want to like this one more than I do, but like I said, every time I review it, there's some kind of bug or issue that kind of prevents me from reviewing it to its full potential. I'd say that really the best thing about this one is its flexibility and pricing. But outside of that, I wouldn't really say it's a VPN that worth using, at least in my opinion. Anyways, guys, this is my video on 5 popular VPNs I think are overhyped or maybe that you should avoid. Let me know down in the comments down below what you think, and I'll see you again very soon.